Hi, this is Teddy Shapiro, and you're listening to Severance with the Boys.
Let's get this party started.
A handshake is available upon request.
Thank you. May I have a handshake? Every time you find yourself here, it's because you chose to come back.
Innies, outies, shake it all abouties. Welcome to Severance with the Boys, the podcast where we would never kidnap you and make you live a hellish nightmare on a daily basis. My name is Luke F, and this is my co-host Jonathan D. Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
Big thanks to Severance composer Teddy Shapiro for this week's intro. Teddy, you are a genius at what you do, and it was a pleasure briefly chatting with you. Thanks for not getting freaked out by my DM. All the other cast members who I DM'd and didn't respond, you are now dead to me. Just kidding. John, how are you doing this week, and how many rooms have you visited today?
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad. I've been to just 6 rooms today. Feeling a bit of woe, a little bit of folly, the usual, nothing too spectacular. What about yourself?
Pretty good. I think my outie hasn't been looking after himself because I'm feeling a little under the weather the past couple of days. So only 2 rooms for me today, the bathroom and the office. We do have a guest today from Optics and Graphic Design. She will be joining us momentarily. Actually, John, do you hear the elevator there?
There it is.
Oh my god, how did I get here?
It's Belinda W. from Optics and Graphic Design. Belinda, how are you?
Pretty good, how are you guys doing?
Very good, thanks.
Thank you. Good.
Thanks for joining us today. Belinda, what did you think of this week's episode briefly? What's your brief thoughts on it?
This was probably easily one of my favorite episodes. I thought it was so cinematically well done. Such a roller coaster of emotions. We actually get to see Mark being happy for once, which made me really happy.
Yeah. Didn't recognize him at all.
No, it's such a different vibe. And yeah, it was just so much to unpack and, so much to digest. But I mean, we'll get into it today.
Awesome. John, what do you think?
Yeah, same. It was a beautiful episode. Like the cinematography, the match cuts and stuff and everything throughout. It was just so well done. It was beautiful and heartbreaking, and yeah, it's beautiful and it sucks. yeah. One of those. What about you?
Well, after I finished it, I was like, I don't know how I feel. I really don't know how I feel about it. I couldn't tell if it because it was so far removed from anything they've done so far.
Mm-hmm.
Cinematography wise and story wise and character wise. I kept thinking, we're getting to know a character here who we don't actually know. We've seen her as Miss Casey, but it's a brand new character. So that was a risk on their part to write a whole episode on that, but I thought it was beautiful. And the more I sat with it for 16 hours afterwards, it was kind of a masterpiece. I was reminded, I don't know if you guys, I know John, you watched Lost. I don't know if you ever watched Lost, Belinda.
I haven't, no.
Okay.
It's a common question we have here now.
Yeah. There's an episode of Lost called The Constant.
I knew it.
Yeah. It reminded me of that a lot, in parts. So. Okay, before we get started this week, I was joined by Dr. Mauer from episode 7. I got to do a little interview with him, which was interesting. Here, I'll play it for you guys. Hey, Doc. It's great to have you on the podcast.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks. How are you?
How many rooms did you visit today?
I mean, a few. The kitchen, the bathroom for sure. And the bedroom too.
Do you feel yourself gravitating towards one room or another?
Not really. Why?
Did you exit any of the rooms feeling despair?
No. Dude, this is getting weird. I have to go.
I love you.
What?
I said, I love you.
I appreciate that, Doc. I gotta run. Cool. So thanks to Dr. Mauer for that little interview. It was insightful. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice
Very
guy.
much so.
Okay, this is a speedrun recap of episode 7, Chikhai, Bardo. Who is this character that seems so familiar but not at all because we've never seen the real her until now? It's Gemma. We see Mark awkwardly introduce himself to Gemma at a Lumen Ran blood drive, and we're off to the races with episode 7. Devon is not happy with Regabi. We get it, Devon. She's very rude and a very bad house guest. Regabi confirms to Devon that Gemma is still alive, and it's opening credits time. Next, we're back to Gemma in her sterile lumen hellscape. She is undergoing several tests at the hands of a sadistic-looking doctor. Gemma asks the question, how many rooms today? And with that, we're left with another question. What are rooms? Why did Gemma have to dress fancy? And where the hell are the police in this town? The first room that we see is a dental surgery, and there he is, the whistling man. Although, didn't he have grey hair before? After a 2-hour root canal, Gemma is released and we can only guess what hell she is off to next. It's Mark memory time, and he brought Gemma an ant farm, not a plant farm. How adorable. Either way, it works out and we see a montage makeout transition with Mark and Gemma. Handsy Mark has prematurely bought a crib, and we're treated to the most bizarre montage I've ever seen. It's Mark and Gemma through the ages, and we're all invited. Would you look at young Rickon? What a wonderful little mustache he has. Mark seems to like him, and he doesn't seem half as unbearable as present day. Long story short, we find out Gemma is pregnant, but in the very next scene we can assume she miscarries. What the heck is this underground bunker with all these innies lookalikes monitoring them? And who is Drummond's new friend with incredible fashion sense? Whoever he is, he sure looks like the whistling man in disguise. Mark and Gemma visit a doctor's clinic, and would you look at that, the paper she is signing is an intake form for Lumen! Whistling Man is back and his hair is greyer than before. Gemma asks him about a room she noticed with the nameplate Cold Harbor. She questions Whistling Jim about it and he gives her a classic Kia cult response. Gemma is pissed. Rebellion is brewing. Back in the real world, Ragabi attempts to explain things to Devon, who wants to contact Cobell for help. Short-fused Ragabi freaks out and ditches Devon and unconscious Mark. Cool, thanks Ragabi. In a flashback, the tension between Mark and Gemma grows. Things aren't great and grumpy Mark is evolving. He suggests that they stop her treatment for, well, whatever she is being treated for. Another day, another several traumatic experiences for Gemma in her rooms. Why is Dr. Evil wearing that stupid sweater? Well, let me tell you, Mr. Drummond. He's playing the part of a sadistic Christmas husband and he's loving it. Side note, that's a lot of 3D printed items in that living room. In a flashback, as Mark thrashes around upstairs with an IKEA baby crib, we flip back to Gemma, who is now joined in her room by Dr. Mauer, who, we can probably presume at this stage, is this season's big bad. After he shares a cruel lie with Gemma about Mark, she takes a chair to his head and it's lights out for the little man. Gemma makes her escape up the export elevator, only to be greeted by conflicted corporate shitbox Mr. Milchick. Gemma has severed to her Miss Casey identity and calmly descends back down the elevator to Lumen Purgatory. Good save, Seth. And with that, it's confirmed, Outie Gemma is a prisoner for life. Meanwhile, in a flashback, oh look, it's the police, they do exist in Kia. We don't hear the dialogue, but we can presume that they share the news with past Mark that Gemma has died, which we now know to be complete horseshit. Mark awakes and is now presumably fully integrated just in time to burn Lumen to the ground in a future episode. Alright, so the start of the episode, we start with Gemma talking to this very strange nurse in a very strange place, which looks suspiciously like Lumen. Belinda, take us through that first scene or two.
Well, I think the first scene, definitely she's being clearly experimented on. There's a bunch of things, hooked up to Gemma. We don't really know what is really going on at first. But my first inkling, I think, was that it was almost like a lie detector test of some sort because of, the dials and everything. And, how the nurse was, asking her all these questions and, really weird questions to gauge something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, how weird was the drowning question? The drowning or the mudslide question? Okay, John, what do you think about that initial scene or two?
Bit weird. Obviously, we got a form of Gemma. We don't know who or what or where she is, with this weird nurse that's doing the weird kind of Scientology tests on her. all the checking out for woe and all that. It's, no idea what's going on from the start, so intrigued.
Yeah, it is very Scientology-like, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, so in the same kind of scene, we see Mark and Gemma in the past. Belinda, what are your thoughts on these flashback scenes?
I think, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but it just made me feel so happy to see the origin story and how sweet their relationship was from the start, and we just see such a different side to Mark as well. There's also this impending Lumen is everywhere kind of because of that zoom in specifically on the blood donation thing.
Yeah, which raises the question, is the Lumen logo a water drop or a blood drop?
In all the placements that they have it in this episode, it's very blood related, so it's a very blood heavy episode.
Yeah, interesting. John, your thoughts on the past scenes?
The flashback scenes, beautiful. They clearly made it feel like flashbacks. They shot it in film, whereas they shoot more of the newer stuff in digital and all set based. Whereas this one was just it was a clear tell of difference of time and difference of outside world versus inside world. As Belinda was saying, it was so nice to see Mark happy and flirting and being super nice and making jokes. It was nice to see Mark happy for a change. I know we see inside Mark as quote unquote happy, but it's work happy.
Yeah. One thing I did notice about the flashback scenes was they started super bright, summery, spring kind of feel. And throughout the episode, they gradually got colder and colder. I don't know if you guys noticed that too.
Yeah,
100%.
100%.
I feel like this episode in general is kind of like splitting the audience. I've heard a lot of people say, "The hell was that?" Doesn't really make sense to them. Yeah. On Reddit, it's Reddit. But.
I think to that point though, like what I was also kind of confused when I first watched it because it was just like such this big amalgamation of like past, present, like you don't know what the chronology really is. But when I was thinking about it more, I was thinking it's almost like that's the show putting us in Gemma's shoes because it's like we don't know how long. I mean, I guess we don't really know how long she's been down there, but like just being constantly like experimented on like day in, day out. I guess like you don't have a good concept of time, and that kind of puts us in that situation as well. Like what really is happening now, or like what really is present, or like the past.
So we are introduced to a new character who we now know as Dr. Mauer, who is the creepiest man ever to appear on this show, and there's been a lot of creepy men on this show. John, let's go to you first. Your thoughts on Dr. Mauer and his weird experiments and...
Man, I just hate the guy. He's such a creep. He makes me feel so uneasy. Everything he does, like especially, I know we're going to touch on it later, but I suppose if we're just touching on him as a character overall, like the ending kind of scene the way Gemma throws the chair at him. Every part of me wanted to throw the chair at him too. So he just sucks. He just sucks hard. Like. He's an asshole dentist. He's a terrible flight attendant. He's a creepy husband. He's just the fucking worst.
He's a good character though. Like as an evil guy, he plays it perfectly. I haven't seen this guy before.
My only funny fact for him is that he did the voice for the animated films Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, he's the Beast, which is very fitting. Yeah, Belinda, what are your thoughts on Dr. Mauer and his House of Fun?
He's just so sus. Like just like
no
bad
shit.
Bad vibes all around. And it's just, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but like he was actually in one of the flashback scenes as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. I feel like I was looking out for him the entire episode. After you're talking about the fertility clinic, right? Where he walks past. Because the camera very clearly focuses on him and he's like this.
Yep.
So I was looking for him in every single scene after that because I clocked it right away. But yeah, he is something else. And I think he's going to end up being, I don't know, even maybe the whole series, big bad guy. His unhealthy relationship and obsession with Gemma, it seems, is growing and growing. So it's going to come down to a battle between Mark and that guy. And I am living for it. I can't wait. Belinda, your thoughts on the rooms real quick.
Well, first of all, this is kind of the first time we get a glance at like what these names that Lumen has kind of been throwing around actually is, like Allentown, Wellington. Like clearly those are situations or rooms that Lumen has kind of put in place for whether it's experimentation or they're actually like planning to do something with it. I think what I found really interesting just seeing Gemma in all of these different rooms is I was getting the feeling that Gemma could potentially be like severed multiple ways, not just like two ways.
Yep.
Which was a big trip for me because the more I thought about it, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I saw someone say, like, do the math on it, and they figured out she's maybe severed over 25 times.
Oof.
Or 25 partitions within her severance. John, your thoughts on the rooms, though?
Is it linked to an emotion they're trying to get out of her or build into her? Like the fear of the dentist, the fear of a plane crashing, like all these, they're all just anxiety filled, terrifying. There's one that kind of links with something that Gemma did say when they're talking about Christmas cards with Mark. She talks about how she hates writing notes and all this. Hates writing thank you notes. And then one of the rooms, she's writing out thank you notes for 1,000 times or whatever. So there's some kind of weird link. I don't know whether they're like trying to connect memories through these experiences that they don't like, through quote unquote dread, woe, folly, etc., to see if they remember when they're severed. I don't know if like Gemma's got like the newest chip and they're testing it on her or anything like that. Some kind of weird stuff going on. But yeah, I think they are clearly testing places to see how much they can sever someone and and how they can stop like the memories flooding through, because even in season 1 PT like says that, you know, you're down there, you have these feelings but you don't know what to do with them, you remember the hurt and stuff from the. So I think perhaps Gemma's on chip 2.0 and they're testing her out or something.
Do you guys think she's the only one down there, or do you think she has pals in those rooms who are also being tested on?
There's definitely the potential that there are multiple, because there are so many rooms down there and a lot of them aren't labeled necessarily. I would assume the labeled ones are the rooms that are like for experimenting purposes. But then there are also a series of rooms that aren't like that, which are similar to Gemma's room, I would assume. So I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, I saw people talk about the Wall of Smiles from season 1 in the Perpetuity Wing, and they are theorizing that all those people were down there at one point testing, which is pretty fucking horrifying to think about.
Yeah.
So through the flashbacks, you kind of see Mark and Gemma's relationship being more and more tested. And there seems to be like a kind of a slow breakdown in communication as it goes on, particularly towards the end, where the final scene where she leaves and he's not even really paying attention when she says, "I love you." And then she leaves and it's the last time he sees her. What do you make of that breakdown, Belinda? And do you think it's due to the fertility problems, or do you think something else?
My first guess was definitely to do with the fertility issues, because I know, of course, it's one of the hardest things like any couple would have to go through, like experiencing the loss and like just the, I guess, the ineffectiveness of, you know, going through IBS and how hard and traumatic that must be for a couple trying to have a kid. So definitely I think that is like one of the biggest triggers that cause their relationship to kind of have this rift.
It's really sad, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
John, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it just seeing their relationship blossom at the start, and then slowly, you know, as Belinda mentioned, as you know, with any kind of relationships that have any trials and tribulations, and obviously going through IVF is not fun for anyone, and then a miscarriage on top of that, and just you can see it's gone from Mark buying a crib to disassembling a crib, and it's horrible to watch. And you can see there's then more of a disconnect between them with the forget to say I love yous, and like this, there's still very much so a couple. They're still very much so in love. You can see that it's not like any kind of huge arguments or anything like that between them, but you can just see that they've kind of given up on things, like especially with like the set dressing as well, because you can see like the flowers that they no longer water that are dying slowly in the background. They've stopped caring about things as much because they're going through a real sucky time. So yeah.
So we finally get to see a scene with Devon and Mark and Gemma and Rickon. Actually, I'm going to start with this one. I loved it. I loved seeing Rickon be... He almost seemed more confident in himself before Gemma's death, and you can tell by seeing that scene that it actually affected all of them, not just Mark. I like that Mark really likes Rickon as well. Well, maybe not really likes him. He tolerates him more. I really love that scene. It was one of my favorites in the episode, I think, to see them all so happy before chaos descended on them. Anyone got anything to add to that one?
My favorite part of it was clearly when when the camera panned over to Gemma and Devon talking, and you can still hear Rickon and Mark speaking in the background. You can hear Rickon going, you can filter out your own urine, and then Mark joke, because clearly he says that, but Mark answers because I presumed it was ad lib. You just hear him go, "Why would you want to do that?" It caught me off guard. I was like, "That's good."
Belinda, you got anything for that little scene?
No, I mean, I think you guys covered it really well. Like, it's just so nice seeing them all together for the first time. And, we always hear about, like, oh, in the past. But, like, it's so nice to actually see it,
Yeah. Okay, so in a weird scene, we see 4 people who we know as the Watchers, who are kind of doppelgangers of the innies, all sat around in a room. They're staring at screens, monitoring their innies that they represent. Belinda, what do you have for that scene? Any thoughts?
Well, my initial reaction was like, I thought back to, I think it was episode 4, the Rose Hollow one, where they were talking about those shadows. I mean, I didn't go back to the episode to see if like these were those people, guiding them through the woods. But like clearly there are definitely doppelgangers. But yeah, no, I thought that was a really nice nod. And I think the other interesting thing that I picked up on was, when Irving is also, like let go from the company, you see his watcher is also not there anymore. So
I didn't pick up on that at all.
yeah, there's like that little parallel there.
Oh, interesting. I loved the back and forth of that scene between Drummond and the guy, and he's like, why are you wearing that stupid sweater? That was very funny. Like, Severance just never fails to drop in a humorous line here and there.
Yeah, always.
It's very good. Okay, so towards the end of the episode, you see real Gemma's emotions get the best of her, and after being told a lie by Dr. Maurer about Mark having a new wife and having a kid, she kind of, that's enough is enough for Gemma, and she bunks Dr. Maurer over the head of the chair and grabs his key card and makes a getaway to the export elevator. Not to go through the whole scene, but she escapes up there, and then she runs into Milchek. Great scene. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, so again, it's another one of the characters running through all the corridors, this time in the dark instead of in the lights. Is kind of a reverse to Mark, because whereas in the first episode, he's running towards her in the light, and this one, she's kind of running in the dark towards him. So it's that kind of parallel there, which clearly you haven't picked up on again, Luke.
Nope.
But yeah, it was a beautifully shot again with the floor lighting to make like just super suspenseful, because obviously she's trying to escape. The dread on myself, and I presume everybody that watched it, when you see her go upstairs and then just become Miss Casey, like, fuck's sake, I really wanted her to escape. This is the fucking worst. And then we see a out of breath Milchek coming in as a hi, Miss Casey, you were upstairs seeing some art and you took the wrong elevator. It's like, fucking hell, no.
It ruined my love for Seth Milchek a little bit. I was like, he's on a redemption arc. He's going to become good, and now he's just backtracked because he's tightening the leash, and he's become a jerk again. Belinda, what did you think of that scene?
Pretty similar sentiments to John. It was definitely one of the more tense scenes, I think, of the season, because it's like an actual escape scene. But yeah, it was just like that feeling of like your heart sinking when you realize that like how stuck Gemma actually is, like, because she's even lower than the severed floor, so there's really no escape for her when she transitions back to Miss Casey. Obviously, like, she wouldn't be in the mindset to escape. So you really get this feeling of like, oh wow, she's like really stuck down there.
Yeah. You remember the movie Interstellar? Yeah. Okay. So the one thing that it's kind of a weird ending, but the one thing that transcended time and space was love. And I saw someone do a parallel theory, because there's a scene where Drummond's like, the barriers aren't holding. And someone raised the theory, like, what if love is the one thing that the Severance chip doesn't know how to bypass? Miss Casey is still, where she's like, she turns around and she's like, where is, and Milchek cuts her off. She's about to ask about Mark, as people's theories. Yeah. Because there's still something in her head that's echoing this person because of her love for him.
That's an interesting point, because like the other thing that I kept thinking about watching this episode is just like, you see how like as they're transitioning through all of these different flashback moments, it's also kind of jumping back and forth between Gemma and Mark, like in the present day. So in my mind, I was thinking, whose perspective are we actually seeing all these flashbacks from? Like, is it Gemma? Is it Mark?
Yeah.
Or is it actually both of them, because that's the only thing that still keeps them tied together when they're so physically separated? And so I think that theory kind of like ties that in really nicely.
All right, so the final scene, or final culmination of shots to create a scene, because it's all over the place. John, what do you make of this, Mark waking up and everything going on there?
So yeah, I thought it was very interesting the way that Devon said, where were you? Because I believe Mark says that same thing to Gemma earlier on in the episode. So it was a good kind of reference point for that. But you could just see how worried she was, the whole Rigabi leaving earlier, which I don't think we touched on, because she was going to call Cobell, but she didn't end up doing that, which is good. Yeah, I don't have much from the scene other than you could just see that clearly Devon's staying there to keep an eye on her brother. That sucks that he's going through all this kinds of stuff.
Belinda, what you got?
I mean, I think there was a really nice parallel with that ending scene at the beginning scene where Devon was asking Mark when he first wakes up, like, where'd you go? And that's like the same thing that the doctor asked Gemma at the very beginning of the episode. So it's kind of a nice like full circle moment, but also kind of touching back on what I was saying about how like they're connected through their memories and their flashbacks. When Devin asks him like, where'd you go? And he kind of remembers like, oh, he was kind of reliving those memories with Gemma. I feel like that kind of confirms that he was just living through the past as he was, you know, as they say, like journeying through whatever the consciousness goes through. So yeah, I feel like it was a really nice way to end off the episode and tie everything together.
All right, guys, it's time to take the long journey over to Theory Corner.
The work is mysterious and important.
Theory Corner. Mysterious Theory Corner.
Welcome back to Theory Corner, where we each present a theory. It can be stupid. It can be anything you want. Belinda, we're going to start with you. What is your theory for Theory Corner this week?
I think just based on this episode, like we can definitely see how much of a grip Lumen has on this town and just like this society, the, you know, the medical facilities and you know, like all of that. And like I've always been really suspicious of the town itself just because of how like desolate it feels. So it almost feels like Lumen is creating this town from scratch.
Okay, John, what's your theory for Theory Corner?
I think that they're working on Severance 2.0. Currently with 1.0, they can kind of be reintegrated. We know it slightly works, but you know they still feel emotions from their above person and the down person. So I think they're kind of doing a 2.0 where they can sever, and they're like testing it by severing her so many goddamn times, up to 25 times, like you said, and they're trying to work through these emotions to see if she still feels them afterwards. So that's my theory, that she is the newest Lumen Severance 2.0.
I have several theories, but I'm not going to share them all. I'm going to share possibly my favorite one. So there is a scene where Drummond states that Mark is stuck at 96% on the Cold Harbor file. And I think we can assume from this episode that this isn't my theory, I'm just going to throw this in, that he is programming somehow, macrodata refining these rooms that she's going into, right? He's stuck at 96%. And I think that is because he is falling in love with Helly. So his distraction and his love for Helly is kind of blocking his progression on his transcendent love for Gemma and creating her rooms. That's my theory.
So thank you all for listening. This has been Severance with the Boys, episode 7. Thank you, Belinda, for coming down to our floor today. How did you find it?
It was a great time. Definitely important work happening here.
Very mysterious. Very, very mysterious. So you can find us on all of the socials. Luke will link it at the end of the episode, and you will see it constantly throughout all of our Instagrams and everything like that. Thank you again for listening. I love you. You're the best. Have a great day. Be true to yourself. And until next time, praise Kia.
Severance with the Boys is a production of Movie Time with the Boys. Written, performed, and edited by Luke Frost and John Davis. Original soundtrack and themes by Orhan Aden. And original artwork is by Zach Williams. Connect with us on Instagram and Blue Sky, or email us at movietimewiththeboysmail@gmail.com.